Afternoon, Martin. How are you doing?
Afternoon, Livo. Good to see you again.
Yeah, good to see you again. So, we were having a chat the other day and decided it'd be good to just really go through a few of these unsung heroes that we were on about, really.
Yeah.
Starting, I suppose, I don't know, with your granddad and the shooting. I always found that interesting when you told me about that. I think it gave you an appreciation of nature,
definitely,
the landscape, and
definitely,
the interaction with it.
My granddad was like me. My dad was away for quite a bit when I was young, so my granddad was like my best mate and my Svengali. But he taught me to look at things and to see, because my uncle, his son, was always in the arts and in graphic design and textile design mainly, and always into music as well. So between my uncle and my granddad, they kind of with my education as a kid. But you go for a walk with my granddad and he'd have his dogs, but he'd be finding birds' nests here, there and everywhere, and he knew what everything was, where it was, how to find it. I just used to enjoy it. And then when I got a bit older, he used to go shooting of a weekend with his mates, a fella called Jack Raynor from up Bacup, and he was the local pharmacist. So obviously had a few bob.
Yeah.
Anyway, there's this big noise one day and this blooming thing arrived on our road. And it was an old Humber shooting brake with a revolving seat in the back, all wooden bodied.
Shooting brake's an estate car?
Yeah, but with the back chopped off with a revolving seat.
What, like a gun?
Yeah,
placement?
like a gun turret, yeah. It was amazing. And it was something like it was like a V8, this thing, and you should have heard it, but they couldn't turn it around in the street. They had to back it all the way out.
Wow.
And I didn't go with him on that, but I used to go with my granddad all over. We used to go all over the Yorkshire Dales and North Lancashire and everywhere.
Well, this is you're from a place called Water, aren't you? Is that right?
Yeah, Waterfoot and Lum in Rosendale. Yeah.
Area. Yeah.
And we used to go to my granddad worked on when they made that Whistle Down the Wind, the film.
Yeah.
And that was filmed in a place called Downham, and my granddad was mates with the guy who was the local bailiff, if you will, for the estate, which was Lord Clitheroe's estate. But my granddad took the back out the barn, took all the stonework down, and then when they finished filming, built it all up again.
Bloody hell.
So we used to go and spend weekends there and all kinds. I used to love it. It was great. But so we used to go, when we go shooting, he'd leave me in the nearest pub or the farm or even some big posh out, big stately home type places. But I'd hang out in the kitchens with all the, the people that worked there and the kids and all that. I had an absolute beano.
Oh, it must have been amazing. I mean, when would he have been born, your granddad, do you reckon?
1910, I think, something like that. Yeah.
My granddad was born in 1905.
Yeah.
My mum was born in 1908.
Yeah.
And I was having a chat with somebody the other night, and that was another world. I mean, it's just about within living memory now, isn't it?
Yeah.
There's still some folk about who are, oh God, they'd be 100 and Jesus Christ, maybe it ain't now.
No.
But I mean, my nan used to tell me about when she first met my granddad. So that would have been mid-20s.
Yeah.
In St Helens. She'd stand, well, the lads would all stand in the doorway of the pub, and the girls would all stand opposite in finger post in St Helens. And the lad would walk to the middle, or the girl would, I can't remember which way around, and if you liked the look of them, you'd walk to the middle. And then when she went round to see, his parents or whatever, when they were sort of getting a bit sort of serious.
Courting.
Yeah, courting. so she come from, her dad was a blacksmith and he was the maintenance man at the pit, so they were a bit more, not exactly rich, but they had a little bit more money than other people. And she went down there in the court. Her dad had bought her for her 21st, so it'd be 1929, 1930. Yeah. And she got down there, she said these houses were one up, one down.
Yeah.
Not two up, two down. Yeah. So they were back to back, one room downstairs, one room upstairs, no toilet. Mm. And considering my granddad was one of 12 kids, so there were 12 kids, his mum and dad and his grandparents living in this bloody house, one up, one down. So she went round there, she said there was straw on the floors.
Yeah,
this is 1929, 30.
Yeah.
And she said everyone was dirty, and she said his mum, who'd be my great-grandma, Mary, she was sat with her mates, Paul Trapstick and Matty Jacket.
Brilliant.
Women. And she said they were all dirty.
Yeah.
And they were taking in washing and that. I mean, Nana'd be like, who'd pay them to do the bloody washing? They were filthy, but it's interesting.
And they used to have them big tubs with a potting stick in.
Yeah, the dolly tub.
The dolly tub,
But what's interesting is that it ain't that long ago.
No, well, I remember a lot of that stuff, and just round the corner from where I was brought up, there was a row of houses, and they were called the cellar dwellings. And basically, they were like you said, they weren't one up, one downs. They were kind of one up, one down in the basement, and then above that there was a back and front of the house. So there was 2 at the back and 2 at the front. So there were 1 ups, 1 downs, but 3 in one house.
Wow! And
then there was a long stone parapet that went along the back that had metal railings.
Yeah.
So you basically, because they were on a hillside, and there's very similar housing in Hebden Bridge actually.
Right.
These ones in Rosendale got pulled down years ago, but the amount of people that lived in that block or row of houses was amazing. I mean, literally, there must have been hundreds of people living there.
You look at the census, don't you? Have you had a look at any of them old censuses?
I have actually, yeah, because my mum used to collect a lot of the kind of historical stuff from that area.
Right.
And still got a lot of it actually up there, and some fascinating stuff. There was a local singing group called the Dane Larks, which is a place, a little village, the Dean Larks basically.
Right.
And they got invited to go and sing in Russia, in like the early round about the Revolution.
Right.
And they toured Russia. This group of singers from Rossendale, you know.
Before or after the Revolution?
Well, I think it was just after.
Just after, yeah, it makes more
but
sense.
they played places like the Royal Albert Hall and all kinds of stuff. And how on earth that got put together is beyond me. I've never found out how it happened.
Well, there was a thing I looked into years ago.
But it was all socialist based.
Well, there was I'm trying to remember a bloody name. It was. Do you remember when Myra Inley, when they were trying to get Lady Astor?
Yeah.
Now, Lady Astor, I think I'm right in saying this. There's a play by Lee Hall, you know, the Billy Elliot fella.
Oh.
And he did a play called The Pitmen Painters, and that's about up in Ashington.
Oh yeah.
These pitmen they'd have a social fund, and it was all about betterment. Each month they'd spend the money on betterment. And they started spending the money on a guy from the Royal Academy, and he was a big socialist.
Oh, right.
And he used to come up to Ashington and give them painting lessons.
That's where the Charlton brothers were from, isn't it, Ashington? Jack and Bobby Charlton were from Ashington.
Yeah, but maybe it was some, you know, like Lady Astor or... Because there was a few toffs who had a bit of a conscience, didn't they?
Philosophical types.
Yeah. So it could be something like that.
Possibly.
But what is it your granddad did then? I mean, was that his...
He worked in engineering. He was, operated lathes and that kind of stuff. And he worked for during the war. He worked in munitions factories in Burnley, and then he worked at a place called die casting, which is where they made moulds and such like. And then they'd work on them and engineer them. But my other granddad on my dad's side, I think I told you about this. He had a pub in Bacup after he'd worked in the building industry all his life until he retired, got a pub. And it didn't last long in the pub because he just drank it, But not long after he died, they decided they were going to refurbish the pub.
Yeah.
And there was suddenly all this furore about it, and they discovered behind a wall they'd taken down this fantastic chalk drawing, and also coloured. Yeah. And what it was... In Bacup, there's a thing called the Britannia Coconutters, which is a Morris dancing thing, but it's based on Moorish tradition. And they're called the Britannia Coconutters.
Right.
And what they do is, it came from the pits, but a lot of people came up to Lancashire from the pits in Cornwall, etc. My grandfather's family were called Woodall, and they initially came up to Lancashire from Cornwall. Right. This picture shows a group of miners, but amongst the group there are at least 3, or if not 4, black guys as well. And it's all it's like one of them, every trade union had a banner, didn't they?
Yeah.
Big banners. Yeah. It was like one of them kind of pictures.
Right.
Fantastic. But it's been preserved, so it's still there.
The drawing's been...
Yeah. It's in a place called the New Inn in Bacup on Todmorden Road. Fascinating.
Yeah, that is. I remember
Rochdale Road, sorry.
I remember you telling me about that before. But it's
just a piece of social history that, long forgotten, then suddenly turns up,
Oh, yeah, these things are always sort of, they're just, again, it's living memory. Once living memory lapses, I think that's a problem with where we are in the world now.
Yeah.
People say things like, if you forget your history, you're doomed to repeat it. And people think that just refers to World War II. But there's plenty of shit went on centuries before we've forgotten about, and I think we're going down the wrong road again, because we have forgotten a lot of history. History doesn't begin and end with World War II.
No.
I mean, one of the things that you were saying in the munitions work, you remember I don't know if they still do it. Do you remember how the BBC banned records? Or they banned Relax, didn't they, by Frankie Hollywood and whatnot? Well, the first record that the BBC banned was Deep in the Heart of Texas.
Really?
Right? You know the munitions factories in the war and the conveyor belts, and you had to check all the bullets and stuff like that. And they were frightened that people would stop checking the munitions on the conveyor belt because the stars at night are deep and bright. They'd take their hands off and deep in the heart.
Brilliant.
So they banned that.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, that was the first.
I remember they banned. What was it? Was it a Hollies song? 4 Pennies, Black Girl.
Right.
They banned that, didn't they?
They banned some funny stuff.
Yeah, they did. Yeah.
Stuart McConey's written a book on all the banned records. That's where I got that from. But it's interesting to note then, isn't it, that even though he was sort of working in factories and stuff like that, that he was still connected to nature. Like
yeah. Well, he bred and trained dogs. He became a kind of nationally recognised championship show judge. He had best of breed at Crufts a couple of times, best gun dog and stuff. When he died, there was a big obituary in... there's like a dog person's magazine called Our Dogs.
Right.
And they did a big front page spread and everything.
Wow, bloody... Have you got that?
Somewhere.
That'd be fantastic.
Yeah. Ernie Woodall, he was called.
Ernie Woodall. That's a corking name, isn't it?
Ernest.
But it just shows you, doesn't it? You know, people nowadays, and I'm no exception, I'm worse than most people, they go to work and that defines them. But then, you know, you've got people back then who went to work and then they lived their lives.
Yeah.
They didn't sit in front of the telly.
Oh, no, not at all.
You know.
My granddad was never in. He was never in. He must have walked at least 10, 20 miles every night.
Yeah.
You know, regardless weather.
Yeah.
And I'd usually be with him, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I used to love it.
So this is... I don't know the area that well. So this was Rossendale, wasn't it? And you said between Rossendale and Todmorden there's a big hill, am I right?
Yeah, it's all a series of valleys. It's a dale, basically. It's the furthest westerly dale, I suppose.
Right.
So you've got Burnley one direction, Bacup, Todmorden, Rochdale the other. And then if you go right over the tops, you're going over towards Ebden Bridge, etc.
Yeah. Well, I think Burnley gave you your second biggest love in your life, really, didn't it, with Burnley football?
Well, yeah. It's funny because they're doing particularly well at the moment, again, after 50-odd years. But I remember as a kid being taken to Rawlinson when they'd just won the league in 1960. So I'd have been 6. And somebody posted the picture of the bus that they used. And I think it was Andy Delamere found this picture and sent it to me. And then I produced when I first came to Liverpool, I bought a corgi toy. I was walking out Bowl Street in this shop window, and there's this corgi model of the Burnley bus, the Ribblesdale bus that they used, with these little figures stuck on top. I thought, I've got to buy it. Yeah. I still got it, boxed and everything. Brilliant.
Yeah. Well, it's sort of one of those things, I suppose. I take stuff like that to be an indication from the universe that you are where you're meant to be.
Yeah.
You know. But, I mean, we touched on it last time before you came to Liverpool, where you went to art school.
Yeah.
And the fantastic teachers that you had.
Oh, it was amazing, yeah. And the visiting lecturers that they managed to get in.
Yeah, the American architect you were on about.
Yeah, Buckminster Fuller and all kinds of stuff. Steve Reich, John Cage, Barbara Hepworth. You know, and they just these people just turn up. They wouldn't even be announced. They just say, "Oh, we've got a special visitor today come over from America or whatever." And you the week before you had no idea that these people were coming, and then they'd just blow your mind, you know.
That's incredible.
Oh, it was great. I was just thinking that, I know you spoke about it the other day, that Hawkwind recording at the stadium.
Yeah.
I saw that tour in Blackburn, actually.
Oh,
King
right.
George's Hall, it was the same tour.
Right. Oh, that's a legendary recording. Space Ritual.
Yeah. I played it all last night, actually.
Did you?
I did, yeah.
Oh, yeah. I blame myself for that, for reminding me.
Yeah.
But, I mean...
I didn't realise it was recorded in Liverpool, you see.
Yeah, Liverpool Stadium.
Yeah. Well, Roger would have been promoting that.
Right.
And then Doreen got back to me last night saying she was at the gig.
So, where was the stadium? I've often wondered that.
Off the back of Todmorden Street, more or less.
Right.
So it was basically it was a boxing venue.
Right.
That gigs got promoted there, so all kinds of people played there, and that was where Roger was promoting before he owned Eric's.
Right.
And then it closed down. I don't know if it burnt down, or it just got pulled down. I can't remember.
No, because it's gone, hasn't it? I mean, there's no record of its existence really. But I mean, so coming to Liverpool was predominantly because you were into the Liverpool Poets, wasn't it? I mean, that was one of the reasons, at any rate.
And the music, but it was the whole, what I perceived as the vibe of Liverpool. Because as a young kid, a fellow who lived on our road was what he used to call a long-distance lorry driver. Right. And he used to come to Liverpool docks and Hull docks. And I used to go with him. And we'd come down to the docks and you queue to get in the wagon. This would be like 6 o'clock in the morning, so you can imagine what time we're leaving up there. Because it was a decent length road then, there was no motorway now. And you go on the dock. The dockers would load the bales of cotton with dockers' hooks, which they all had then. But we couldn't touch anything whilst they were loading it. So what we used to do, you go and get a cup of tea on one of the ships or something like that. Wow. And it wasn't a problem, you could just wander around the place. Yeah. And then all we could do then was rope and sheet the wagons. So I learned to rope and sheet wagons when I was about 10.
Wow.
And I loved it. But I remember then Liverpool was still really busy.
Yeah.
And I just got this vibe. I remember going in this chip on the dock road, and I'd never come across this before. And I said, I'll have meat pie and chips. And this woman behind him, and I was like, my head didn't even reach the counter. And this woman in the shop, she got the pie and chucked it in the fat.
Bloody hell.
And I went, I'm not eating that, you dirty bugger. and all these big heavy-duty dockers all fell about laughing. They went, good on you, lad. It was brilliant. The whole place fell about. But it was great because there was all these fish vans along there. I used to love fish because it was quite not so much a rarity, but it was a bit special if you had fish.
It was.
You know what I mean?
When I was growing up.
Well, we used to buy a load of it and feed half the blooming street. You know what I mean? Come back from the docks with all this fresh fish.
Yeah.
Because it was cheap and it was great. You know what I mean?
So that's when you was a kid.
Yeah.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because you just caught the very tail end of that. Because as we were talking about yesterday, in 1971, the docks went and they went to deep basin container
up
docks
towards Seafoot and all.
Yeah, and they opened one in Garston, which is still there as well, isn't it? I think they called it Liverpool 2 or something.
Well, that was when I came over to Liverpool from Leeds, because I went from Leeds, then I was like an apprentice stonemason for a year, back up in Rosendale, and then I decided to do art and drama, so I went to Bretton Hall. But as soon as I got there, I decided it wasn't really for me.
Yeah.
Although there was like 5 or 6 girls to every lad that was there and stuff like that. I had a beano while I was there. Like,
you bloody did.
But it was always destined I was going to come to Liverpool, really, I think.
Yeah, well, that bus was waiting for you.
Yeah.
On Bold Street.
Yeah. Well, funnily enough, because we started at the Art College then, that would have been 75. The Albert Dock was shut. But as students, we used to go down onto the docks because there was all kinds of wood, loads of stuff hanging about that you could just basically help yourself to because it was just forgotten about. Nobody used to derelict spaces.
Yeah.
And but we found that the Polytechnic was going to try and take on the Albert Dock as a project. They obviously never got the funding, but we found this great big roll of stickers saying "Save the Albert Dock."
Yeah.
So we had this big roll of stickers and we went, that's the name for our band, we've got stickers already done. And that's what we did. And we found a great big box full of fluorescent green berets. So the first gigs we did, we used to throw out like frisbees, these fluorescent green berets.
Wow.
So loads of kids around Liverpool would be wearing these fluorescent green berets and people go, what's that all about? Weirdos.
Is this when it was, what was it?
Albert Dock and the Cod Warriors featuring the Fish Fingerettes.
That was it. After the Beatles split up in 1970 or whatever, that it took Liverpool about 5 or 6 years to get back into the swing of making music again. It seems like that void is filled with sculpture and painting and poetry and art, really, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's almost as if the Beatles wrung the city dry of...
And there was at that time, there was bands like Deaf School, Nasty Pop, Supercharged.
Well, Deaf Schools apparently that's the pivotal point where it changes and Liverpool starts making music again.
It was when I first saw Deaf School, which was at a gig at the Everyman, and I just thought, wow, I'd seen Roxy Music and Bowie and all the other stuff, but I just thought, I prefer this. This has got that theatrical thing and it's a bit seedy and it's a bit...
Yeah.
I just thought they were an inspirational band, and apart from that, because they were in the third year at college, we were in the first. They let us use their rehearsal room when they weren't using it.
So, going back to what you were saying about the cotton and that was an interesting thing.
Well, it was because what it made me aware of was just how, because I'm always interested in geography and history and all that kind of stuff, and to be actually involved in then picking the cotton up from the docks, taking it back to cotton mills up in Lancashire, where it'd be spun, woven, made into fabric, dyed, finished, and then our job would be to move it round from site to site, because he was contracted to different factories and stuff, and so then we'd be bringing bales of cotton that had been, bales of material back to the docks, which would then go back to America and then get shipped back to this country as Levi's and Wranglers. But also, interestingly, the other place that used to get denim from there was the place on County Road that made jeans, which was called Fleming's Jeans.
Right.
Because jeans had been quite thin until you got Levi's and Wranglers, and it was because they were making this 18-inch, it's called 18-ounce denim.
Right.
Before that, they'd been 14-ounce denim and 16-ounce denim, but it was just those manufacturers using this heavier denim, harder wearing.
Right.
But the history of that was that it was initially made as material for tenting, for making tents for the army during the American Civil War, etc.
Right.
That's how far that goes back. And I just thought the whole thing was fascinating. So consequently, and then there's also all the kind of byproducts that came off cotton. So you had things like, and it might sound a bit weird, but the company he was working for was called Smith and Nephew Textiles. But they made things like sanitary products and all that kind of stuff, because it was all cotton based.
Yeah.
So you'd also go to these kind of factories, and some of them were around Stockport and that kind of area. So each area had specific roles as to what it did with the work, because a lot of felt was made up in Lancashire as well, and that again was the byproducts. That was like the fluffy stuff that came off when stuff's been spun or whatever, and then basically it's due to heat and water and compression. They made felt. Well, felt was used a lot for soundproofing and deadening and things. Yeah. And I remember going in this factory in Waterfoot, and you'd never seen a more archaic machine than this thing. It was a huge wooden revolving table with a massive arm above that swung across. It had a big brass roller on it, and it was making grommets, and those grommets were for Rolls-Royce Bar and Olswick, and they were going in jet engines. And this was the only machine in the country that could make these particular grommets. And
it broke.
Well, no, it was there until they didn't need it anymore. And I actually had a summer job working in that factory, and it was absolutely fascinating. And I couldn't believe that this piece of technology that was obviously a couple of 100 years old was providing a service to a state-of-the-art industry, because there's quite an active aircraft industry all around Rolls Bar and Olswick, Samlesbury, Wharton, etc. And it's where they were testing. At the time, it was the English Electric Lightning was the plane. The Meteor started there, but the Lightning was the next one. And I remember, and was it the RB211, the super fast thing that they built?
I don't know.
It was like a high altitude surveillance plane, and I remember that being test flown over Lancashire.
Wow!
And we'd never seen anything like it. This was a high up jet fighter, which didn't exist then. It was amazing.
Well, water was the whole reason, though, that the cotton was spun.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Because the soft water, you could wash the cotton flat.
And also they used to diffuse it into the air, so the whole atmosphere and the environment was permanently moist.
Yeah.
But when I was a kid, I was into football, playing football, into music, and not really that bothered about school.
No,
and when I got to me kind of probably about 14 or something like that, I got a rude awakening, because I got a shock, because they knew, my mum and dad and my family knew that I was familiar with what it was like working in cotton mills, and I didn't want to do that.
Yeah.
And then I got told, he said, well, basically your option is if you don't go in mill, you go down pit, unless you buck up at school.
Yeah.
So my dad arranged for my uncle to take me down the Apton colliery pit one Saturday morning. And it frightened me to death. I thought, I'm going to buck up at school rapid here, which I did. But that'd probably been about the same time that I managed to get hold of a copy of Tonight at Noon, the Adrian Henri book.
Right.
And I was kind of gobsmacked by it.
Yeah.
I just loved the approach to it, how it was written, how it was laid out graphically, and everything about it. So it became a bit of an obsession. And I just liked how he talked about the characters in Liverpool and the whole vibe of it, and I thought, somehow or other this has got to fit together, which eventually I made it fit together.
Yeah.
And like I said in the last thing we did, I feel quite honoured to be part of Liverpool's history and culture now, because I suppose I must be. I've been here long enough, and but it was that whole. It wasn't just music. It wasn't just art. It was sculpture. It was graphic design. It was everything. It was all going on. It was a hotbed of activity. And although it was it wasn't until like 1975 I came here, I was enthralled by that culture from the late 60s.
Yeah.
Up until all of that. And it was funny because my first kind of idea was, I thought, when I get to Liverpool, I'm going to find out where these characters are, where they're drinking. And unbeknown to me, they all drank in the Crack and places like that, right next to the Art College. So I met them all within the first couple of weeks.
Brilliant.
And I was like, I just thought, this is perfect, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, it's just gone on from there, really.
But didn't you say you ended up living in a house with... I don't think it was Adrian Henri you ended up in the house with. But...
Well, I lived next door to here.
Yeah.
And then that house, at the time, it was the Rep Theatre Company. And the Science Fiction Theatre Company was just starting off and all that. And so in that house, there was like Pete Postlethwaite, Bill Nye, little Dave Rappaport.
All in the one house?
Terry Cannon, yeah. Well, it was Terry Cannon and his girlfriend, Nikki, at the time. And it was quite a big house, so they had rooms they could let. And basically, I did it for a while in our house. We had various visiting actors from the Everyman staying in ours. So it was that kind of a thing, a bit of a commune, if you will.
Yeah.
So I've lived, and I also lived at the very end house on here as well for a while with a bass player called Andy Hughes and his wife Alison. Both, unfortunately, passed away quite recently. I'm still in touch with his son Damien. He's a guitar player and motorbike engineer and racing enthusiast based in Holland now.
Right.
He still comes over now and again, though.
Yeah. But it's an interesting time as well in terms of just the impetus and the innovation to do your own thing. That's what appeals to me. I mean,
I think that's what that whole experience of the foundation course at Leeds did to me, because I'd gone there with the theory that I could draw, I could do representative stuff, and I was interested in avant-garde, but I didn't really know how to approach it until I went to Leeds. And when you come across the characters that were there and they were part of that whole scene, it just turned me in a completely different direction and turned me into a different kind of person, I suppose. But at the same time, it was when there was I worked on the it was the end of a thing called the lump in the building trade, and there was strikes in the early 70s. And I got involved with the local trade union movement and was helping make banners and such like in their offices in Leeds. And so I was always quite kind of politicised. My dad was a Labour councillor anyway, and over in Rosendale. So I'd always been kind of, I suppose, politically switched on, due to my family and my background, I suppose. But I always felt like a commitment to the kind of, I'm not saying underclasses, but less privileged or whatever. In fact, and then when I went to Bretton Hall, the time we were there, did some work with a guy called Ian Smith, and little Dave Rappaport was there. And we went round pubs around Barnsley and Wakefield, just doing this like trio. Dave had set a miniature kit up on a table. Ian was this lad from Birkenhead, a guy called Ian Smith. Big, tall, big lad. And me, kind of little, middle-sized.
Right.
And we used to just play for beer money, but we had an absolute ball, we just used to did all kinds of, and played in some of the weirdest, grimmest places, but it was great. I really enjoyed it. But the weird thing was it was appreciated.
Yeah.
We once went up to Middlesbrough, and they went round the steelworks, but that was fascinating as well, because that was a completely different side to the mills that I knew.
Yeah.
Steelworks are heavy-duty places.
It's terrible to think all this stuff's gone.
Yeah.
Because
it's bizarre.
Well, there's some really strange things you see that in the sort of world we live in now. You can't really get your head around it, but if you experience that world, you can. For example, you know that Oscar Wilde did a speaking tour, and he'd go down pits in America, and read his books to minors.
Right, I didn't know he did that.
Yeah, and it's a funny thing, you sort of... You think, well, how can that happen that this sort of, big, gay, Irish writer would be accepted by these working men and stuff like that? But...
It's what he had to say, isn't it?
It's what he had to say, and I think there's been a symbiosis between artists and working people.
Oh, certainly.
I mean, I remember during the miners' strike, the 84-85 one, the amount of sort of celebrities that would do
absolutely
tons of stuff, and donate and all this, that and the other.
And think, often on the quiet as well.
Oh yeah,
because they were worried about being exposed to the government, because at that point, Thatcher had that thing about she decided she was going to close Liverpool down, for instance. It was heady times, should we say?
Well, yeah, and it's very difficult.
It felt like something had to happen.
Yeah,
and eventually it did. With the riots and stuff.
Yeah,
but that's what Liverpool felt like in the mid-70s, with this cauldron of activity that at some point was going to
boil
over, which obviously it did.
Yeah, I mean, but prior to that, I mean, around 75, 76, it sounds like the music scene starts swinging again, really.
Yeah.
And people get back into it with, from what you've said, Deaf School and what you guys were doing and things like that.
I think a major catalyst to all that was the opening of Eric's, which was, Roger Eagle, Pete Fulwell and Ken Testy started the club. But they encouraged, shall we say, the left of centre young people to start making their own music. And I think Deaf School were intrinsically important in that, because they were writing their own material. There were loads of bands about doing covers and all that kind of stuff, like there always had been.
Yeah.
But it was, that's not the kind of thing you were going to see at Eric's.
No.
It was original material that people were doing.
Well, that's it. Writing music starts again after the Beatles have sort of rinsed that area.
Yeah, absolutely.
It sounds like it took about 5 or 6 years after them backing up.
So you had the likes of Probe Records, for instance, which was, the independent record store in Liverpool. Strangely enough, Virgin opened their first shop round about that time on Ball Street. That was their first shop in the country, which I hadn't realised. Yeah,
no, I didn't know that.
No, and so Jeff and Annie Davis, who ran Probe, they were encouraging just alternative forms of music. They were importing interesting stuff, and the people that worked in the shop for them were all knowledgeable about different aspects of different kinds of music. So you had people who were into jazz, into blues, into reggae, into whatever it was. So you could go in, and you might go in with the intention of buying a particular record, and you usually come out with 2 or 3 different ones that they'd suggest.
Yeah.
And more often than not, they were right,
Yeah. Well, that's a funny thing, isn't it? You don't get that culture whatsoever.
No, I don't think so.
I think, though, that vinyl, with it coming back, you might see they have these record stores.
Absolutely, yeah.
And stuff like that.
But it's taking off in a big way here again.
Oh, yeah, hugely. But, I mean, back then, the idea that you had stuff that... Because now if you want vinyl, unfortunately, you're going to either go Amazon or you're going to go something like that. But this independent spirit, the likes of places like the Somali Club and all that, and all these places where you could go and be turned on to new music totally, and then people who were running Probe or wherever were obviously moving in the same circles and able to bring that music to a wider audience.
Absolutely. And Eric's gave a platform for that in a live sense as well.
Yeah.
It also encouraged, because Eric's wasn't a punk club, it was a multitude of musics that got played there.
Yeah.
And I DJ'd there very early on. Every kind of music that any kind of cutting edge was acceptable.
Yeah.
And that's what it was about.
Yeah. Yeah, it's hard to see it, how it can ever get back to that sort of situation.
I think what it is, you don't have to look for stuff anymore. It's all there online.
No, that's right.
So it makes it easier, but it takes a lot of the fun out of it.
Yeah, that's.
Because I used to spend hours rooting through record racks, and I'd find obscure shops in Manchester or Blackburn or Blackpool, wherever.
Yeah,
and you'd always find something different,
But you did the first Pistols gig in Liverpool, didn't you?
Yeah.
With
That was with Albert Dock.
That's
before we became Yachts. And that was the main band, which was the Pistols, played upstairs quite early on in the evening, and the support then played downstairs in the club that actually became Eric's.
Right.
After the main band had been on.
Right.
And it was interesting. We got on really well with Glenn Matlock and Steve Cook. John Lydon was a bit quiet. We went in the pub, the Grapes on Matthew Street, and he didn't really have much to say, but the rest of them were fine, you know. It was interesting.
So that was late 76, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So I suppose, when was the Bill Grundy and the Filth and the Fury and all that?
I think that was 77.
It was, wasn't it?
Because it was the Queen's visit to Liverpool in 77.
Yeah.
And I was playing Anik in the UK at the Art College Windows, and some guys from the CID came in and said, "You better pack that in now, lad." Yeah. Because they had speakers blasting out the college windows, you know. And she was coming along Oak Street like the Queen.
So what were these spooks? What did they?
They were just like special branches. They said, "You pack it in."
Big blokes.
Oh, aye.
Jesus Christ.
So it was like no choice, you know what I mean?
I'm amazed they didn't smash the record.
I know, yeah.
It's another world, isn't it? I mean, it is another world. I think that now that we're in this sort of social media age and stuff like that, I think that people don't need MI5 to keep them quiet. I think people police their own speech now. I think that's a strange world that you're in, because you start a social media account and you just go in there with the social skills that you've got, whatever they are, that we've all sort of managed to scrabble together as we go through life, and you start putting things on, and if you don't get enough likes, you start rooting around, oh, they got likes for saying that. And I think subconsciously people start changing their speech and start changing what they say so they can get more likes, and they start sharing things that more people like. And then what they don't really understand is that in the background, Facebook is running an algorithm to put things in front of people so that they see that more often. It's a very interesting...
I've never gone into it that far, to be honest. I've only really started using Facebook of late, and I just put on bits of tunes for people.
Well, that's the best thing to do.
You know?
I try.
And if they don't like it, they don't need to listen to it. It's simple as that.
But it's a strange sort of, you know, people are now being diagnosed with internet addiction, and young people are getting diagnosed with, and it's kids killing themselves. I mean, it's kids killing themselves live on Facebook because you can broadcast video live. It's a strange thing, isn't it? That's why years ago they said that they should stop giving out the names of school shooters and stuff, and I agree with that, because it's a way to become famous,
glorify it,
you know. And I think that we live in this mad world where
that whole culture of this kind of search for a star kind of TV stuff, I mean, I just find it puerile and horrible.
It is,
and sad.
Yeah,
sad,
it is,
because it's desperation at the end of the day.
It's desperate people being exploited to be humiliated.
Yeah, exactly.
It reminds me of the Roman Colosseum or something.
It's horrible.
And I've never watched any of it. I can't be bothered with it. It's just like, I can't take it. I used to hate things like the Generation Game when I was a kid, because that was taking the piss out of people as well. I'm just, even though Larry Grayson
and the other one is the kind of... what's it called? Eurovision Song Contest thing.
No, that's just pure shite.
And it's just... and yet now it's become one of them things that some people regard it as a much-watched thing, because it must watch, because it's that bad.
Yeah.
But I can't even...
I've never got into that. This is shit, so... Yeah.
Just leave it where it is, for me.
Yeah. So you never put a song in for the Eurovision?
Yeah, no way.
No, I mean, the whole... you're at risk of sounding like a miserable old bastard, which, you know, I am, but you sort of try and pull it back a little bit when you talk to people. I see the most sort of people I'd regard as quite intelligent and, you know, switched on, for want of a better word, who then, you know, a certain friend they'll know that I don't know will pop in when we're having a drink and that, and then the next thing it's all Love Island, Love Island, Love Island, Love Island, and you're like, what? Oh shit! How can you be into this? I don't understand intelligent people.
I've never
being
watched
into
any of them sort of things.
Well, I don't watch the telly, to be quite honest with you. I don't think I've watched the telly much since 1989, unless it's football. Because there's just been no worth having on. It's
funnily enough, I do tend to watch a bit, and I must admit, I'll admit into it. I tend to watch Emmerdale now and again.
Oh, aye.
Because Zach Dingle's a Burnley fan. They used to call the Preston North End fans used to call Burnley fans the Dingles, which I thought was quite funny.
Oh, that's all right.
I quite like it, yeah.
I used to fancy Dolly Skillbeck.
Oh, right.
It was Matt's wife.
That's
Do you remember
right,
that?
yeah.
God, Jesus. Emmerdale when I was a kid. Yeah, we watched that. Corrie was more bang on. Because I grew up, as you did, among those women like Hilda.
Yeah, oh, absolutely.
As soon as the Ogdens come into it, it's like, you've got it nailed.
Yeah.
Because that was just Flo Turner on the corner of our street.
Absolutely. It was everybody you knew, wasn't it, Corrie?
Yeah. Well, every morning would wake up with Flo Turner shouting over the edge to Mrs. Kelly, and all you did, I'd be lying in bed, and all you'd hear was Edie, Edie, and then Mrs. Kelly would emerge, and they'd just chat, all day.
Well, that was the other thing. Funnily enough, that's another thing about the cotton mills, working in the cotton mills.
The mowing.
That's exactly it. Yeah, that was amazing.
Oh, they did it skillfully and well. They worked in Cromptons when they were younger, in Ashton and Makerfield, making light bulbs and stuff. Yeah. And it was the same thing. It was that bloody loud.
Yeah.
The mowing.
Yeah.
I tell you though, you watch Les Dawson do it.
Yes.
He's still the master.
Yeah.
The master of it.
Yeah, he's brilliant. Yeah. And and the weird thing was, although they were doing that in the mills, if you went in a pub of a night, and it was a bit noisy, you'd see people doing it. Somebody go into the bar and they go,
yeah. Oh, yeah. I love mowing.
Yeah.
Mind you, my nan used to get annoyed if you were behind her pissing about. She'd stop that bloody mowing.
Yeah.
She knew what you were doing.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I mean, but...
Memo for meddlers, it was called, wasn't it?
Oh, I don't know that one. I only know
Memo for meddlers.
Memo for meddlers.
Yeah.
One of the things my nan used to say, and thankfully I sussed it out talking to some, working it through what she meant, she used to always say, see ya. You're doing something. I think it was see here.
See here. Yeah,
see here.
It is, yeah.
See
here, don't do that.
One of the best things she used to do, when she couldn't be arsed with somebody, the time she'd go, oh, and I was like, all right, whatever, that's just something my nan does.
Yeah.
I was in a post office queue one day, and there was an old couple in front, and the queue was long. And he's getting, like blokes do, he's shifting from foot to foot, and he's going redder and redder, and he's getting annoyed. And his wife's just like, oh, because women are far more patient in these situations. Yeah. And she turns round and she sees him, and she turned round and she went, oh, and he nearly fucking exploded with rage. So whatever that was a massive insult.
Yeah. Well, you can imagine what it might have been.
I God knows what it might have been. I don't know. I've wondered many times about that. But I mean, coming from these little places, as we both did, not that where I grew up is now little, it's horrible now, to be honest, into the city. I remember my first visit to Liverpool, and that was just on a bus and going to record shops and stuff like that, and it was...
mind-blowing.
It was mind-blowing.
Well, funnily enough, before I came to Liverpool on with the wagon driver, I once remember coming on a Sunday school trip to New Brighton Fair. And I remember the coach we came on, the Charabang or whatever it was, it had a fin on the top.
Oh, them?
Yeah, do you remember them?
Yeah.
And when we got to Liverpool and we had to go through the old tunnel, I was like, wow, this is amazing, Yeah. I thought it was futuristic and unbelievable,
be.
Yeah, I was like, wow, we're going to a different country now, it was that kind of thing. Yeah. And I really did think we'd been to a different country. I hadn't been to New Brighton.
It still is. New Brighton is still a new country. I got a mate who lives there, and he says it's like 1958 there.
Well, they've spent a lot of money of late, though, haven't they? They've cleaned it right up,
And they got the floral pavilion there. Is that there, is it? Yeah.
No, that's Southport. The one in New Brighton's called...
Something like that.
Something pavilion, no, I think.
Yeah, it's the something pavilion.
Yeah.
So one thing we was on about before was how Big in Japan formed on the bus ride up to was it Bretton Hall?
Bretton Hall. Well, it was Deaf School were touring in America, so the English crew were here, and the songs they did were Big in Japan, Clive's in America, What We're Gonna Do, Where's the Vehicle Now, Billy, which meant Where's the Van, Billy Drummond.
Yeah.
And what's the other one? That's three that I can remember. But they wrote them on the way to the gig.
That's well remembered, remembering three of them. What was this, 1970 what?
5, 6.
Wow. It's not bad remembering that 40-odd years later.
A bit of a shock to me, really.
God, yeah, I bet it is.
But I just remembered it because it always stuck in my mind. I remember Bill Drummond wearing a pair of... sorry, I just touched the mic. A pair of glasses that were like a pair of women's legs with these shades in. And he was just... He was a real character, but it was great. And it was good. And it was Steve Allen, who is Enrico Cadillac in... Deaf School. It was his brother Phil Allen that was the drummer, and a guy called Kev Ward who did artwork and such like for Deaf School and the roadie, and he was the bass player and Bill on guitar.
Right.
And that was it. It was just a 3-piece.
So that was around the same time as the science fiction.
Yeah.
76.
Yeah, it would have been. Yeah.
Because predating that's the thing that you painted the banner for, isn't it? The Liverpool School of.
Well, that was part of the Young Festival. And that was the O'Halligans brothers and a guy called Charles Alexandra.
Right.
And that was...
because didn't he say...
the Hope Street Festival. Sorry, the Matthew Street Festival.
But wasn't it all about... Festival. Wasn't there some... Sorry to interrupt, but wasn't there some daft thing... Young never came to Liverpool, but wasn't it like...
It was kind of a folklore thing.
Mythical...
Yeah.
That's...
reputedly to have said that Liverpool was the pool of life.
That was it.
And that's what they based it on. And then there was a lad who was at... college with us who did the sculpture bust that was mounted in the wall. I don't know if it's still there or not because it's now the Irish bar opposite the Grapes.
Right.
It has been called the Armadillo Tea Rooms. And Deaf School used to play and rehearse there. And all the bands that were forming used to meet up round there because Probe was just round the corner.
Right.
So it was a hub. And then underneath it there was a place called Aunt Twacky's, which was a second-hand clothes place and stuff. And Jane Casey had a little shop down there.
Right.
So everybody kind of hung out and got to know people, and it was all a very formative period. And then obviously there was the science fiction theatre thing happened there, and where they built an actual environment inside out of scaffolding and pumped smells underneath the audience and all kinds of stuff. It was bizarre. It was great, though.
So that was all Ken Campbell, wasn't it?
Yeah, and that was like the Illuminatus, really. That was the production.
Yeah, the 12-hour play.
So you had to see it in 3 separate sections.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Oh, right.
And my partner at the time made a knitted tablecloth with all the condiments on it and everything else that could be just pulled off a table and thrown back on like a piece of magic. And Chris Langham had asked us to do the music, but we passed it on to the guy I told you about, Terry Cannon, who lived next door.
Yeah.
And they did. I can't remember who else was in the band with him. You'd have to ask Terry. But I think it might have been Alan Peters. Can't remember who else did it. But, so that was fascinating stuff.
Yeah, well, that was Robert Anton Wilson, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I've never read his
Andre
stuff.
Shea and Robert Anton Wilson, yeah.
Yeah, I've never read his stuff at all.
Have you not? No, it's fascinating.
The only one that sticks in my head is the Fenards.
Yeah.
Which is a word the guy, one day he starts seeing this word Fenard written everywhere or something like that.
It's very conspiracy theory stuff, you know.
Yeah, oh God, yeah.
But interesting.
Yeah.
I've got it somewhere, I'll lend it to you.
Yeah. Well, that's gone into legend, the Illuminatus trilogy show, hasn't it?
Yeah.
So he did that at the Liverpool School of Science Fiction.
Yeah. It's now a big Irish bar, which I can't remember what it's called. Lafferty's or something, I can't remember.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah.
Because Bill Drummond came back and did his birthday here, didn't he? Early this year. There was something with the band out church he did.
That's right, yeah. I missed that, actually. I can't remember where I was. But prior to that, he did an installation, which I kind of helped with. It was a memorial to Roger Eagle. And they had Roger's record collection there. And then they located the remains of the sculpture in the Mersey somewhere till it got washed away.
Right.
So it was a kind of cyclical thing. But around about the same time, Bill did a series of pamphlets, which I've got, which I'll let you have a copy of them, because they're interesting. Because one of the things he writes about is first meeting Roger Eagle at a gig he went to, Dr. Feelgood's at the stadium of all places.
Right.
And that would have been about 75 as well. I can't remember if I went to that one or not. I saw Feelgood's a few times, but I can't remember if I went to that. But, so yeah, it was just, everything was just bubbling up. Bubbling up then.
Yeah. Well,
because Bill had been working as the set designer and builder in the Everyman.
Yeah.
I remember we were in the Grapes again on Matthew Street, and the police come in and blooming tried to arrest him because he was wearing his tool belt with an hammer in it. I don't know what they thought he was going to do. Like.
Well, with the School of Science Fiction, didn't he go out for a pot of glue and never come back or something? Isn't that the story?
Who was that?
Bill Drummond.
Quite possibly.
I can't remember now. I read that a while ago.
Right.
Or it could have been in London, because when it transferred to London,
didn't it? Yeah.
He just hated it for some.
Right. Oh, I don't know.
It probably didn't have you lot round and the proximity and the interesting characters that Liverpool had.
Yeah, possibly, because there was some lads who were at the art college a bit older than us, and they'd had a thing called. They'd done this project called The Boys, and it was a bit like. Do you remember Eric Sykes, The Plank?
Yeah.
Well, they did this thing where they walked. I think it was from Blackpool to Liverpool, with the three of them with their heads stuck through a wooden plank, and they walked from Blackpool to Liverpool or something like that. And they used to do all these kind of situationalist type things all over the place. They were quite wacky.
That sounds it.
Oh yeah, there was some really, really interesting characters knocking about. And, names of who I can't remember a lot of, but there was always something. Something to challenge what was the norm, if you will.
Yeah. Well, that belt and braces thing.
Oh, absolutely.
You were on about.
Yeah.
That was so surprising. But then it sort of made sense. As I said to you when I was at college, and we looked into Dario Fo, and it was the accidental death of an anarchist.
Yeah.
And it was like, and the book is sort of translated by Gavin Richards, and I thought, well, that's the fella out of EastEnders. That's the Irene.
Yeah.
What the hell? And also, Allo. He was the what a mistake to make.
Yeah.
He was that guy. It's like, him? How?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then you can get it on YouTube now. Yorkshire TV did a production of it about 1981.
Oh, I see.
And he stars in it. And he's brilliant in it. It's really good theatre and a really good production of it. But now I understand with you on about this Belt and Braces Roadshow, that's where he came from, wasn't it? Wasn't there something at the Everyman they were having some downtime?
That's right, yeah. It was one of the earliest refurbishments before they did this more recent one.
Yeah.
So the theatre closed. It was in the dark for, I think, 2 years. And the last show there had been the Hooley's Wake, the Ken Campbell thing.
Yeah.
And up until that point, I think it was Alan Dossett that had been the director. And then they had a period of having visiting directors, so they had is it Chris Bond or John Bond?
Yeah. Chris Bond did the Under New Management, the play about the Fisher Bendix.
And then there was Glenn Walford, who did an interesting production of Macbeth, as it happens.
Yeah.
And some very risque, interesting bits of theatre went on there.
The one that keeps coming up is Tarzan's Last Stand. I'm not sure what the hell that's about.
One of the best things I saw, or I enjoyed the most, was a stage production of One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest that they did.
Yeah.
And that was great. That was really good. I can't remember who actually acted in it at the time, but it was just great, because I loved the book anyway, and it was before there was ever a film made from it. Yeah. And then when the film came out, I was chuffed to bits, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But that production was great.
Is it Ken Casey or somebody who wrote the book? Is that
Ken
right?
Kesey, yeah.
Ken Kesey, yeah. Yeah, I've been recommended to read that book.
You never read it?
No.
Oh, right.
No.
I've got all these in paperbacks. I'll bring them all around. It ties into that Kerouac and On the Road and all that.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
Ken Kesey was one of the ones who were the...
Merry Pranksters.
Yes,
that's
on the bus and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Hence the Burnley bus as well.
The Burnley bus.
There's a lad who... drinks with us in Cape Pass, and he said, Martin, you've got to paint it psychedelic. It's got to be I said, you're joking. I said, that's sacrosanct.
Oh, yeah.
I said, no way.
No, absolutely
I might buy another one and paint it.
Well, you wouldn't get one that good.
No, I wouldn't get
What did you say it was when they won the FA Cup?
1960.
1960. How old
won the league in 1960.
How old was you then?
6.
God, that must be a misty memory then.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Well, I remembered that my brother was in his pram. My brother's 4 years younger than me, so he must have been 2.
Right.
And my mum took us to Rawlinson to see the team come back, And then Andy found a black and white picture. It was in Burnley, the picture they took, but there's just a gang of kids, and you could say any one of them kids was me,
Yeah. Well, they're...
And it's weird because it's 1960. Most of the kids have got shorts on. Some have got clogs on, flat caps.
Bloody clogs. Did you ever wear clogs?
Yeah, I did, yeah.
Jesus Christ. I remember...
I wore clogs when I worked on buildings.
Yeah.
Because they were great.
I had a pair of steel toe cap ones, but they don't the sole doesn't bend.
It doesn't move, no.
I
found them comfy. I've still got 2 pair in the house.
Did you?
Yeah, I've got a pair of working clogs and a pair of Sunday clogs.
Oh, clogs for best. I always used to think about, if you cut the sole in half and put some kind of... But it still wouldn't work.
No, it was what with them... It's the 400 of them, what they call shawl sandals.
Oh, Dr. Shawls.
You know, that's the same principle.
Jesus, my mum used to crap me round the head with one of her Dr. Shawls. Oh, you knew about that, mate, let me tell you. God, Dr. Shawls, I'd forgot about them. Oh, aye. Well, no sense, there's no feeling, is there? You know what I mean? So, yeah, I don't know. I love hearing these stories, and I don't know how I don't know. It's never, ever going to happen again,
No. Funnily enough, when I was in my late teens, when I started messing about with home recording, basically, we had a best mate called Ken Schofield, and his grandmother was in her 90s, and we recorded her in about 1970, 72.
Brilliant.
And somewhere I've got that on a cassette.
Oh, you need to dig that out. Yeah. We'll get that digitised.
And her accent is unbelievable.
Wow.
I mean, you think I've got an accent now.
No.
That's no accent at all, what you've got, you know what I mean?
Oh, when I moved out, when my mum moved us and we moved to Widnes, and I was about 14 then, when I moved out of there, the piss was absolutely ripped out of me about how I spoke. Yeah. I mean, really, because you didn't know any different, and no bugger could understand you.
No.
That's the trouble. I mean, with my nan, things like you mustn't do that, them aren't do that.
Them aren't do that.
And people don't have a clue what you're saying.
Artilaki football or what? And stuff like that.
Oh, none of that one.
Are you playing football or what?
Oh, it's going warm.
Going home.
Yeah, I remember that. A skeetant thommer.
Yeah.
You got a hammer.
Yeah. It's all very like Old English, really, you know.
Aye.
And there's a lot of Viking influence in the words and the place names and all that.
Oh, most definitely.
Up there, yeah.
I think that
my village, which is Lumb, Lumb, was shortened down from Wolfenden.
Right. Oh, proper Viking. Well, that's where you are is prime. That's the bit of the country that was given to them as the Danelaw, wasn't it?
Yeah, because it was all forest.
Yeah.
Still on the maps, it's down as Forest of Rosendale.
Right.
Because it was one of the hunting areas and all this kind of thing, owned by whatever.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, you weren't allowed to kill the king's deer. That's for sure.
That's right. Yeah.
You know, that's what in the story of Robin Hood. That's what gets him in trouble, isn't it? He kills one of the king's deer.
Yeah.
But I think that it's a golden age that was sort of put down really by one thing or another. I think there was probably, not that I know too much about it, but within the reaction to government in terms of the militant council here and that, I think there were probably elements within that weren't particularly helpful and that sold out the city and things like that. Yeah. From what I can gather.
Yeah. I'm sure. And vested interests in various areas.
I suppose the Gardens Festival was meant to be the thing that healed everything up, wasn't it?
Apparently so. It didn't seem to do that, though.
It didn't seem very festivally, but then I only saw it on the telly.
Well, I went to did a couple of performances there with the youth theatre groups, and they built a theatre space. There was an outdoor theatre space. There was some interesting aspects to it, and there were some decent events put on there, but it was very short-lived. You know, it never kind of carried on. I know it's being redeveloped at the moment, isn't it?
Yeah, and did it in any way encompass or absorb what had been going on?
Not really, because it's like an island off Egbert, isn't it?
Yeah.
If you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So it was always very underutilised, really.
Right.
And I suppose geographically as to where it was, because don't forget there was no. I mean, you could get to St Michael's Station and walk from there.
Yeah.
But there was no real. It wasn't really an infrastructure there to serve it, if you know what I mean. So
this was presumably when Heseltine was.
Well, I think it would have been, because at that point I was working with a black dance company called Delado Drummond Dance, who had initially been based at the place called Africa House on Upper Parliament Street. And after the riots, Heseltine basically helped the company to generate funds to be able to establish itself more professionally. So we had offices underneath the Everyman, the Everyman Annex. And from there, we had a company of 20-odd people, and we were doing workshops in schools, community centres, and we ended up doing Edinburgh Festival and getting some quite prestigious places to play all over the country. You know, educationally based.
Yeah.
So that was positive, but again, that was short-lived, and too short-lived, because we brought over a master drummer and dancer from Ghana, and they did the teaching, and a lot of people picked up a lot of skills, and there's still a big interest in kind of African tribal music and drumming, and which relates to the samba stuff and everything else.
Yeah.
But it's still, I know people that were involved in that group who are still playing today, playing traditional African stuff. And it mutated as well. Yeah. So the people that were involved with that got into kind of rap and hip-hop and everything else. But the basic training had been in this African drum and dance stuff, and that was really important.
Yeah.
And culturally important to Liverpool 8, because it meant they had something to be proud of. There was a flag to wave, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And I did artwork for them as well, as being the driver and I used to play with them as well.
Yeah.
Mainly played the cowbell, and even just playing the cowbell, they were fascinating rhythms that you had to learn, and you had to be spot on.
Yeah.
You know, and it was great.
So was this around the same time you were doing this rotunda thing?
That would have been about 84, something like that.
Yeah.
And then the rotunda would have been in the early 90s, I think I would have been working.
Spinning,
quite
right?
a bit later on, yeah.
But the rotunda was, you said...
Libby Mackay was the name I was looking for.
Libby Mackay.
Yeah.
But you said the rotunda was an extension of the Scotland Road Free School.
As far as I understand, yeah, because initially they'd had as you come out of their first office, as far as I remember, was when you came out of, it was down by the bottom of Tide Barn Street as you was just going on to Scotty Road, but then they changed the road, didn't they? But it was in a block of old offices.
Right.
And I think they just got free rent on this building to start with. And then as far as I understand, they moved up the road towards Scotty Road. And then there was also stuff going on at, what's it called? I can't remember what it's called, the place. It was an estate that was built through pressure from politicians, that group of writers, etc.
Right.
And they built this estate up towards Bootle. I can't remember the name of it, sorry. That's a shame. It'll come to me. But they put on a lot of theatre stuff. Belt and Braces went and actually played there for them and stuff like that. But actually that had been earlier on. But they ended up building this whole estate, and it's like affordable housing for local people. But the canal runs right through it, so actually quite aesthetically pleasing.
Yeah.
But I remember years later when I was, let's say, working around the Rotunda, and I got asked to attend an open community meeting about transport links in the area, because if you think that area is just dissected by like two major roads, and there's no way to go across.
No.
And they were deciding how they could challenge this. Well, I actually, unbeknown to me, upset people, because I said, well, basically, the way this is set up and how it's been designed, it's ghettoised you.
Yeah.
And people took offence at that. I said, well, it's actually true. I said, I've been to America and I've seen what ghettos are like. And it's about that people not being able to get out of an area and cross. I said, so to me, the answer is minibuses. Just use minibuses to start new routes and things like that. Eventually it happened, and a thing called North Liverpool Community Transport.
That's
started.
right, yeah, right, okay.
And I was involved with that very early on.
Right.
And
well, that was definitely an extension of the free school.
Oh, yeah.
And it was the same guy doing it.
That's right, and it was,
Is it Phil Ord or something like that?
That rings a bell. But
it's a funny name.
It was their administrator was a woman called, I think she was called Pauline something. She looked like Julie Driscoll.
Right.
And so as we used to go there when I was doing community-based projects, I used to go there to borrow minibuses and stuff. And then eventually, when I was at the Everyman Youth Theatre, we bought a van off them, an old transit 15-seater minibus thing.
Yeah.
And me and a girl called Delia Brady used to go around all over Liverpool youth clubs and stuff with we called ourselves guerrilla, as in urban guerrillas, doing these kind of art attacks, as we used to call them. Yeah. And it'd be theatre, drama and imagery, etc., all wrapped together. And we just worked with groups of kids all over Liverpool, putting together these small theatre pieces, and at the end of a series of sessions, we do a little performance.
Right.
And so we started getting funding off Merseyside Arts to do it. So that went on for a few years, and then Dealey started working doing similar stuff in the prison service and stuff like that.
Right.
She's now got a shop in town called Hobo, which is the place
near Ivan's
that's right,
place.
Yeah.
Right.
So they're doing the turntables and coffee stuff and all that. But no, that was fascinating. I really enjoyed that work, and then I ended up working for Merseyside Arts as the music officer,
right,
and helping people like Urban Strawberry Lunch get going and get funding.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the kind of more abstract stuff just wasn't getting assistance. And at the time, Merseyside Arts had been supporting kind of local folk groups and jazz groups and things like that. But there was nothing for the kind of alternative side. So I made a big fuss and basically said, look, this is really intrinsic, interesting, important work they're doing. Let's support. Anyway, as it happened, it worked and they got established and they went on to do it. And now they're the people that run the Bombed Out Church. Ambrose Reynolds, whose dad was Stanley Reynolds, a journalist.
Right.
So that was, I really enjoyed doing that. And then I also managed to get us funding to take a group from here over to work on a festival in New Orleans. And that was an eye-opener as well. I really enjoyed that.
Yeah.
Except I missed my flight home due to reasons I can't talk about.
Oh, fair enough. But, we won't talk about it.
But it was, it was fascinating, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember what my mate said to me about the New Orleans bands. He said that they have, I could be wrong on this, I'm sure he said they have two drummers. One does the bass drum and the other does the snare.
Well, there's that, but they also do a thing in, I think it's after Mardi Gras and it runs up until about Easter. It's called the second line.
Right.
And what that is, it's like in the kind of no-go areas of the city. Every Sunday morning, it's open for outsiders to come in, and the second line is basically all the churches, they all kind of have a service, and then the whole street is just full of musicians ranging from 5-year-olds to 85-year-olds, and it's all brass and drums.
Wow.
And they just parade, and it's just a huge
it's amazing.
event. And I went, and I couldn't find where we'd park the bloody car. Anyway, this guy on a police bike, black policeman on a big bike, said, I think it's about time you guys were getting out the area, man. Because once it gets up to about, I think it was 1 or else 2 o'clock, it's back to like, you shouldn't be there.
Right.
Anyway, we managed to find the car and get out eventually, but it was brilliant, absolutely brilliant. And just the exuberance of it and the vibe of it.
Yeah.
Oh, it was fabulous.
It sounds amazing. I think that you've probably seen more of America than most of us, haven't you?
I don't know. I mean, yeah, we toured. We did, 30-odd cities or something like that. We did something like 30-odd cities in 38 days.
So you never saw much of the places,
no.
obviously.
I saw the venues and I saw motels.
And what was the travelling like? Did you just get in a bus?
We had a big hired tour bus.
Yeah.
A lounge area, and then bunks and accommodation at the back. But more often than not, we just travelled in that and then stayed at hotels overnight,
Yeah.
So we get to a city, do a sound check, go back to the hotel, go back, do the gig, gone again in the morning.
So who was on the tour?
That was just us, that was just Yachts, and then we had local support wherever we went.
Right. And what were the gigs like? I mean, so they knew you, did they?
Oh, yeah, we played the Elmer Combo and all the kind of big net, like the Whiskey A Go-Go and all the kind of established music venues, most of which we'd heard of,
Yeah.
And through association with people like the Rolling Stones and all this, it was like, wow, Most of these places weren't that big.
No.
But we did do quite a few colleges. We played in, I think it was Vancouver or Victoria with Joe Jackson. We did one with the Cars somewhere in that area as well. But we had some of the supporter bands we had were astounding players, musicians, but lacking in ideas or having anything to say,
Wow.
It was bizarre. And also we were there at the period when it was, we did one gig and it was Death to Disco. And they were physically burning. There was a big bonfire of them burning disco records.
Really, really, really mad.
It was
strange.
strange.
Shit.
It was strange.
If you don't like it, don't listen to it.
Yeah, I can't remember where it was but there literally was a big bonfire where they were just throwing vinyl onto it.
Yeah.
You can imagine what the smoke was like as well.
Oh, jeez, yeah.
Horrendous.
Yeah. I've never really understood that movement.
No,
I must
weird.
do some more reading on it,
It was
really.
odd. It was odd.
Yeah, because it's football stadiums and they're burning massive mounds of probably records that are worth quite a bit now.
Well, this was outside of the venue where we were playing, you know.
Jeez.
Yeah, it was strange.
So your music must have been pretty well distributed for the people to know.
Well, yeah, well, it was in this country, it was on Radar, but Radar was a subsidiary of Warner Brothers, so in America it was Warner's, and in Canada it was Phonogram. Right. So it was properly supported. So we'd turn up and say, I don't know, Montreal, you'd have all the executives from their family and everything from record companies there and stuff like that. We were going to be the next, you know, English band to, like, crack it. And the first album was all right. The second album was just not.
So what went on there?
It just... The first album was stuff that had been written whilst we were in Liverpool at college and all that, most of which had been written by Henry Priestman and John Campbell. And then when it came to the second album, we'd all started writing stuff. And we just started falling out about what should go on the album, what shouldn't.
Right.
And it was Martin Russian, who produced the second album, said to me, he said, some of these songs sound like sub-XTC songs. I said, I know. I said, we've just done a tour with him. He said, well, you can bloody tell, Martin.
Right.
But I had about 3 or 4 songs, and he offered me some. He was just about to do an album with Pete Shelley, called Homo Sapien. And he said, well, I'm just about to, because we were working in Olympic with him, and then he was about to open his own studio. So he said, look, when I get some downtime, he said, you can come down and I'll demo them songs for you.
Right.
Never did it because I joined Pink Military and carried on with that, you know.
Right.
But he was a sound producer, was Martin Russian, like.
Yeah.
He'd just done Human League, quite a lot of stuff, Buzzcock stuff.
Yeah.
But the guy we'd worked with in America had done Robert Gordon and Link Ray and Parallel Lines for Blondie and all that. And he was either in the Shadows of Night or 13th Floor Elevators or one of them kind of garage bands in the 60s. But he'd also produced some, is it the Saucer Landing, the Hendrix thing?
Right.
He also mixed that and all kinds of stuff. And we did it in a place called Radio City Music Hall, which was like up on the top floor of that place. And underneath us was this massive dance studio. We used to take skateboards in. But it was where they had the massive chorus line called the Rockettes. And all these women were about 6 foot tall, honest, huge. And they used to go in and practice their dance routines. We used to be able to go in and sit and watch for a bit and stuff. That was amazing. It was great.
Yeah, I'll bet you stood and watched.
It's fascinating. Fascinating.
It's funny though, isn't it, how these bands fall apart? I mean, I'm sure you've got no regrets about it.
No, I haven't. I mean, I must admit, I probably enjoyed doing Pink Military and Mellowtones and It's a Material stuff just as much, if not more. And what I'm doing now, I'm enjoying just as much again. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
that's clear.
Yeah.
That's clear that you enjoy what you're doing now. Yeah. I think you just enjoy everything, Martin. I don't think you do out you don't enjoy.
I do my best.
Yeah, well, that's it. Yeah. Well, that's the thing, you know. I mean, going back to the old Grandad and taking you around there and stuff like that, I think there's a serenity and a contentment that people like that have because they just live in the. I mean, to be born where you were born in that area and where your Grandad was, everything's on your doorstep. That's kind of, you know, appealing, and whether you like it or not.
You're so far removed from kind of culture, really. Like,
yeah,
I had to get out. You know, I had to travel to here or Leeds or whatever to find other people that fitted in with me. You know, because I was regarded as a bit like the village weirdo up there. You know what I mean?
Right.
I once remember I painted a load of clothes cut out of hardboard and hung them along my mum's washing line. And the flipping comments that were going on around the Billy Martin's lost the plot. There's something wrong with him. All kinds of. They just thought I was nuts, you know. But I didn't care.
No. Well,
we had a good bunch of mates, and we all went to gigs together. We all went to festivals together and stuff. All lads mainly. Yeah. And we used to lads on ramp. We used to call it, you know. And
I bet
we had some fun.
Yeah. Well, you still having fun? You know, it's the only way to be. Should we go and have a pint then?
I think that's a damn fine idea.
Cheers, Martin.
Nice one,
See you again soon.
Cheers,
nice one,
lad.
mate.
Nice one.